Hi, everyone. This is DeFi Dad. So recently I've noticed there's a lot of new interest in the decentralized finance space. And with that comes a responsibility to educate new folks on what exactly is DeFi, how does it work, how might one benefit from it, how do you participate in it, and also what are the risks associated with it. And I've also noticed that there are a lot of crypto OGs who haven't paid close attention to this or have been intentionally ignorant about it, and that there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I wanted to walk through some of the basics around what is DeFi, like how do I qualify what is DeFi and what is not DeFi, so that you can easily share this link with your friends and family, and this should help bring them up to speed. So let's get started. Before we talk about DeFi, let's just talk about some of the background on Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then what's led to this subsection of applications built on Ethereum that's referred to as decentralized finance. So when I look at Bitcoin, I just to quickly summarize it, if you're not familiar with it, it is a peer-to-peer, decentralized, censorship-resistant store of value and transfer of value. What's really powerful about it is that no one owns the Bitcoin network. Everyone that participates technically owns the Bitcoin network, and you have all these players working together, whether you're a miner, whether you're a developer, whether you're someone who's buying and selling Bitcoin, whether you're incentivized to educate others on Bitcoin so that the network continues to flourish. These folks are all working together, and it kind of acts as a flywheel. And that's been awesome. It's been around for over 10 years, and it serves a specific purpose here, which I am going to generalize as a store of value, a digital store of value, and then the ability to transfer value anywhere on a network that is, again, decentralized and censorship resistant. Beyond Bitcoin, let's talk about Ethereum. About 5 years ago, Ethereum, the network, launched. And I'm just going to read to you here what ETHUB defined Ethereum as, because I think they did a really good job. So Ethereum is an open source, public, blockchain-based distributed ledger for featuring smart contract scripting functionality. It enables developers to build blockchain applications with business logic that execute in a trustless environment while leveraging the high availability of the Ethereum network. What does that exactly mean? It means that you can build money applications on this public blockchain, and you can rely upon what are these smart contracts to execute the same functions over and over again, no matter who you are, as long as you're using an application built on Ethereum. And in most cases, we're always paying a small fee in Ether, which is commonly referred to as gas. And so when we use Ethereum, it is powering all of these different DeFi applications that I focus on. And it means that I'm reliant upon Ethereum as another tool in my crypto toolbox. So I do have exposure to Bitcoin myself because I think that it's interesting as a store of value and a transfer of value. Ethereum allows me to do the same thing with a store of value and a transfer of value, but it builds upon that with the ability to create applications. Prior to the rise of DeFi, what was really popular with crypto has been trading. Crypto has been dominated by a narrative of trading tokens, whether that's Bitcoin, Ether, or other blockchain tokens. And that's come in the form of trading on centralized exchanges. So I'm having to trust another, company or party or entity with my assets. I deposit it normally into an exchange, and then I essentially try to buy low and sell high. And no matter how sophisticated you are as a trader, you have been forced previously to trust these exchanges that provide order books where buyers and sellers meet, and we're able to sometimes trade with margin or leverage. At the end of the day, I'm giving up control of my assets. I'm having to trust someone versus using a trustless, decentralized finance application where I can maybe do some trading, or I could even do some dollar cost averaging. Anyways, that is what has come before DeFi. And that is why DeFi is such an enormous innovation, because we're taking the principles of Bitcoin and Ethereum with a peer-to-peer trustless crypto asset network, and we're applying that to all the different constructs of finance, and we're creating these trustless peer-to-peer mechanisms similar to the way that I can store value or transfer value with Bitcoin or Ether. So then DeFi comes along, which has been worked on since 2017, but really it's caught steam here in the last year, especially because of all of the applications and the ability for these applications to sort of build on top of one another. Each one can often be integrated to work with another DeFi application. And so as more and more are built, it creates this sort of additive and complementary value that people seek out. And in other words, it's kind of like once you try it, you start to realize all these other things that you can do, and you see that in the fact that many of the DeFi teams and applications are working together now so that they can continue to add value and build a better user experience. So in terms of defining decentralized finance, the way I define it here is it's a subsection of finance related and money applications built on Ethereum. That's very general. And more specifically, it is a new peer-to-peer decentralized censorship resistance finance system, enabling trustless activities associated with legacy banking, leverage, debt, credit, capital markets, money, store of value, investments, and more. Long story short is that you're able to build applications that are specifically trustless, meaning I can use the application and not depend upon trusting anyone. They are peer-to-peer. They are decentralized. Ideally, some of these applications are already decentralized and they are controlled by a decentralized autonomous organization or a DAO. Some of them are in the process of that. This is something I'm going to talk about in a bit. It's definitely, it's a spectrum when you think about how decentralized some of these applications are. And then of course, going with that is the goal of all of this is to enable a censorship resistant finance system. You know, like what makes Bitcoin so powerful, what makes Ether so powerful as crypto assets is that no one can stop it. You know, the network is decentralized, it's flourishing, and it means that I can store my wealth on the blockchain and I can have an assurance that it continues to live there. But I can also be assured that I can end up sending that to someone else. And I'm able to do that thanks to the miners that uphold the network. And I'm able to do that because of the code that's been developed by core developers. There's about 30 really popular DeFi applications on Ethereum. There's lots more, but just when you go by the ranking of how much value is locked in those smart contracts or has been deposited, indicating how much people are using and trusting this application, it's remarkably over $2.5 billion, which if you go back even a year ago, it was less than $500 million. So there's a 5x increase year over year. And then if you go all the way back to 2017 and the start of 2018, I mean, it was all very negligible at that time. Like you're talking about less than 100 million in terms of value. All right, so what's so different about DeFi? To dumb it down, I tend to think about this as really the first opportunity using a decentralized, censorship-resistant peer-to-peer crypto asset network where I have more opportunities than ever to let my assets work for me, or in other words, earn me money without having to trade. And trading is still a part of the DeFi world. There's lots of incredible tools. I mean, you can trade with margin. You can do just market orders or market swaps. There are futures. There's all sorts of things I can do here, even options and derivatives. But I think it's really interesting that with DeFi, I have the ability, in many cases, regardless of what the mechanism is, there's many opportunities where I can simply let my assets do the work for me and provide liquidity. And that often then earns me interest. It can earn me market maker fees. And sometimes what I'm going to generalize as pooled rewards. So That could be a governance token. That could be a token that powers a DeFi protocol that has been set aside to incentivize folks to participate in that protocol. A common one that I think of is SNX. So the Synthetics protocol has all sorts of powerful trading applications, and when you participate in some of those, you can potentially earn the SNX token, which has helped them to grow very quickly in the last few years and create a very liquid DeFi application and protocol. This is more why I wanted to create this video. I am seeing lots of incredibly misinformed takes on what is DeFi, like how do you qualify something as DeFi and how do you disqualify it. So I want to walk through these different traits, and these are not uh, these are not necessarily meant to disqualify something from being considered DeFi, but I would say that ideally, in this new frontier, an application should attempt to answer yes to all of these. And if there's more than one answer uh, to one of these that's a no, it's, in my book, I don't consider it to be DeFi. It's compromising on the principles that define uh, that define Ethereum and Bitcoin as these decentralized, censorship resistant networks that allow people to transact and exchange value with one another. So first up, does the app offer a service or product akin to something I might find in legacy banking and finance? This is a really easy one. I'm only calling it out because I'm worried in the future that folks will call anything, any application DeFi, and it's in the name, decentralized finance. It should relate back to some construct or mechanism that we commonly associate with finance, and that in this case might be something like trading or lending or capital markets, or I put down a really specific example of like an ETF. Then, am I required to connect an Ethereum wallet? This is really important because it goes to the heart of, am I 100% in control of my assets via this wallet? Uh, when I use a DeFi application, the first step is connecting my wallet. If I don't have to connect my wallet, if I have to sign up, let's say with like an email and give up any sort of personal information, and then have to deposit assets and allow someone else to have custody and control of those, that is not DeFi. DeFi is, again, simply using my Ethereum wallet. And again, maybe in the future, if DeFi were to grow to be more popular on other blockchains as well. But for right now, just Ethereum is what I find is where everything's being built. And then this one is much simpler, I think, to think about. Am I in control of my assets? Normally, when I connect to a DeFi application, I am essentially, depositing my assets into a smart contract. And let's say I'm doing some lending, but I receive often a token, and that token is like an IOU, and then that token entitles me to retrieve those assets. But the only person who can gain access to my assets here is me. So I'm in somewhat of a fragile place with this, because as a user, I can't just call up customer service and say, hey, I forgot the key to my MetaMask. Like, I don't have the seed phrase, I've lost access to my MetaMask, or my wallet has failed me somehow. There's only one person that can control my assets, and that's me. Then next up, am I only interacting with app smart contracts and avoiding any human middlemen? This should be really obvious. Again, it all happens through smart contracts, in this case on the Ethereum network, that are built into applications and protocols that power the DeFi app I'm using. Another thing is, am I not required to submit to KYC? So you should never have to submit to KYC. And to me, this is probably the biggest disqualifier of whether or not something is DeFi. There are probably going to be some debates about this in the future. I know that there are a few DeFi applications that require KYC. It often happens because they're in a place where they're regulated, and there's just like no way around it for them not to require some KYC. But KYC again means that I have to submit like my name, my billing address, often like an email. I have to basically verify who I am, and it's because of legacy regulation. But ideally, there should not be KYC. And that's, again, something I guess that can be debated by others in the future. Are there no geographical restrictions? This is another one that I've run into where there are instances where there are teams dealing with bureaucracy because they launched and they operate in a nation where they are required to not allow access to certain countries. While I can, I guess, be pragmatic and understand that, ideally the ethos behind Ethereum and DeFi, I believe, should be that there are no geographical restrictions. But again, it's a more complex issue when you think about whether there are sanctions on certain nation states or between different nation states. And then lastly, are there no minimums to participate? This is one more where there shouldn't be a minimum. I guess like I have to qualify. There does have to often be some minimum, but I think a minimum beyond, let's say, 5 to 10 US dollars is unnecessary. Part of what's magical to me about DeFi is that in many cases you can earn the same rate, let's say in lending, whether you have $1 or $1 million. And there are applications like Compound where I can lend a single DAI, and there is no minimum. And then there are others I know where they might require $5 in some cases because the gas fees they know are so high. And so I think it actually goes back to a user experience that they're trying to enable. They want to make sure someone doesn't deposit $1 and pay more gas and then realize that they paid more gas than it costs to put a single dollar into the application. Okay, so anyways, that's how I qualify what is DeFi. And again, this ideally should be a yes to all of these. If there's a single no, somewhat forgiving about what that is, but the ones I'm not forgiving about is the ones that there's no room for negotiation is, I believe, these. Here we go. Yep, yeah, these top four. So it has to be a finance related service or product, of course. I have to connect an Ethereum wallet, otherwise it is not DeFi. I have to be 100% in control of my assets via this wallet, otherwise it is not DeFi. And I have to be only interacting with the app smart contracts. I should not be interacting with any sort of human middlemen to enable me to use this application. The common DeFi applications that I use are, we can just say wallets, but again, these are self-custody wallets. In other words, I'm always in control. There is another type of wallet referred to as a smart contract wallet. Argent is one of the most popular types of smart contract wallets. It means that you are able to enable applications to function like within the wallet. And so I can use different DeFi applications within the Argent wallet, and that's what makes it a smart contract wallet. Next up is trading. There's so many different trading DeFi applications, but commonly there are like market swaps like Uniswap. There is Matcha by the 0x team. Then we talk more about spot trading. Spot trading would be like me using DYDX. I also could also spot trade with something like Loopring. Then in terms of margin, I tend to think of DYDX. They are far and away the leader in terms of volume there, but there's also DDX and there's also the Nuo network. Beyond that, there's futures, and the type of futures that's popular in crypto and now on DeFi are decentralized perpetual swaps. So you can trade Bitcoin perpetual futures or perpetuals with DYDX. If you're outside of the United States, you can trade with MCDEX ETH futures. So that's me collateralizing Ether and then trading against that stack of Ether. And then There's also Future Swap, which has been in alpha and will be relaunching, and that's another perpetual swap with up to 20x leverage. Then next up, we have Dex Aggregators. These are essentially like Expedia or Kayak for finding the best trading rates and the least amount of slippage. That's like 1inch, that's like Matcha, that's like Dex.ag and Paraswap. ETF-like exposure. This is where I can hold, in many cases, a basket of 2 or more crypto assets, and they will continue to essentially like rebalance or hold a certain ratio so that I can have exposure to multiple crypto assets. And so there's tools like token sets that's very popular, but then there's also PiDAO that's very popular. And then you can use Balancer, which is more recently launched. You can put up to 8 crypto assets or tokens into a single basket, and you can decide what should be the ideal percentage of that basket that you'd like to hold for each of those tokens. Then another really popular application is lending. I mean, anybody who's ever had a savings account in the banking world, you can imagine, and this is really being able to earn more interest because there's no middlemen and you're earning from those that are borrowing. So that's another part of the equation, is taking out loans. We have yield bouncers. That is moving your lending to the highest rates, or the pools that are earning the highest rates. So in other words, I don't often lend to a single pool. I often lend to a yield bouncer like Idle Finance. They will just continue to move my money between like an Aave and DYDX and Compound. Oops. There we go. And then next up, we have stable coins. There's over 8 billion in liquidity in terms of stable coins. Those are all pegged to $1. We have stable coin swaps because those different stable coins can fluctuate a bit from that dollar peg. And so it allows someone to trade between stable coins, which presents lots of opportunities. Then we have options. We've got insurance. Oh, by the way, with the options, this is exciting because it's all on chain. It's obviously settled on chain, and you're able to, in some cases, set the expiry for puts and calls, and you can even decide in some cases what the strike price is. But options is a humongous worldwide market, and so that coming on chain to Ethereum is a big deal. There's insurance, which I tend to think of with like smart contract insurance. So I can pay a premium to have coverage if a smart contract has a bug that might compromise my assets in that DeFi application. There's also derivatives, which in most cases, I think the most popular one is trading on synthetics. You can trade indices, commodities, Forex, and even derivatives of crypto. There are games, which also can be labeled as like a no-loss savings with pool together, where everyone puts their money in the pot and it earns interest, and then all that interest gets awarded weekly or daily to whoever gets randomly picked out of the group by an algorithm. There is no loss donations, where everyone deposits money and then the interest gets donated. So it's a way to lose zero money, but ultimately donate the interest that's earned in DeFi to other people and organizations. There's sports betting that's just starting to catch fire. And then there's prediction markets, which actually have been around longer because of the launch of Augur, but prediction markets are starting to also catch fire as well. Lastly, I want to cover the common risks I consider in DeFi. So first up is a smart contract bug. And when you call it a bug, it sounds harmless, but a bug refers to a bug in the code, which could lead to funds being drained, let's say, from an application by some bad actor, or it could also mean that the funds get locked up and that no one can retrieve them. And that's scary, and that is a risk that I think about with every application I use. The fortunate, part of this, or the silver lining, is that it's becoming a standard that teams have to get their code audited, and every DeFi application or platform should ultimately have their audits linked to their website. So if one is not able to find that or see that, It's probably meaning that they're in the process of it or that they haven't done it, and that you should approach the application with extreme caution and assume that every dollar that goes into it could potentially be lost. And so you don't deposit more than you're willing to lose, regardless of whatever the return is. There's other ways to mitigate my risk, though, by using Nexus Mutual, which is nexusmutual.io. It's essentially insurance for DeFi applications. And so I can buy it like car insurance, and I can pay a 1.29% premium in most cases for an entire year, or for however many days or months I'd like. And that then allows me to have an assurance that if there's a smart contract bug that's discovered, I'll actually get a payout for whatever coverage I bought. Next up, the rest of these are much simpler to explain. Admin key risk. Most applications that launch, they retain an admin key, which means that they can, in many cases, pause or shut down smart contracts, meaning they can shut down the DeFi application. And that's normally there in case some sort of disastrous bug is discovered. So these are things that I expect to see in many of the new DeFi applications, but what I expect to also see then is a plan to abstract away that admin key right, and to see them decentralized in the future so that there is no longer this admin key risk. There's also governance compromise. This one I don't worry about at all. I haven't really witnessed it yet, but if someone were to launch as a decentralized autonomous organization, and if their tokens were bought up by a single entity, or entities that are colluding, I mean, you could have a bad result where maybe they vote for something that benefits them, but ultimately hurts the users of the DeFi application. Another thing is a liquidity crunch or crisis. This would be like I'm lending to a DeFi application, and the borrowers, let's pretend all the funds have been lent out, and I want to withdraw those funds. Maybe I need it for something, or maybe there's a stable coin that's failed, and there's some sort of like a black swan event. Well, I can't get my money out because others maybe have borrowed it, even though they're over collateralized as borrowers. Their money, or the money that they've borrowed that I lent, is still with them. And so anyways, liquidity crunch is something I think a bit about. Oh, there we go. Then a stable coin losing its peg is always a top concern for me. This refers to a stable coin that is pegged normally to the US dollar, like DAI, synthetic US dollar, SUSD, MUSD by MStable, which is newer. It's a basket of stable coins. We have Tether, and then we have USDC. So if one of these were to somehow fail, which I'm not going to go into exactly how that would happen, but let's just pretend that something really bad happens and now everyone is scrambling to sell out of that, and it's not holding a dollar peg any longer. That could be pretty disastrous, especially if these tokens are being used as collateral. So if they're being used as collateral in certain DeFi applications, if they lose their peg and now they're falling in value, there's a risk that someone could get liquidated, because now their collateral that's allowing them to borrow looks, let's say, worthless or less valuable than it was before. The last thing here is, this is more of just a common thing in crypto, just leverage and trading in a volatile market. I mean, there's risk to this because very few people are good at using leverage and trading. And when you're in a volatile market, if you use leverage, or if you're just spot trading, you can obviously lose a lot of money just because the market can go up or down very quickly. All right, so that's all I've got for you today. I hope this is helpful. Some of this information obviously could be changing over the coming months. I mean, this is a really new space, and some of what I've defined here, I have really just defined based on my own experience and having lots of debates with others about these new constructs that we live in using DeFi. So please let me know if you have questions or comments in YouTube or on Twitter. And I'm just excited for folks to learn more about, again, the power of decentralized finance. And my goal is to hopefully help more people understand how it all works and how you can participate, but also at the same time, how to mitigate that risk and be aware of what's at stake when you do participate in these new finance systems.